me any opportunity to see figurative art in Cleveland, Ohio, this girl's gonna take it. Wearing my mask, because that's the rule, and I'm not gonna break it. What do you know? And this is a Midwestern girl's dream. It's a bowling alley and a bar and a restaurant all in one. That's Mahall's in Lakewood. With an art gallery upstairs. That's MOCHA, the Museum of Creative Human Art. MOCHA. And look.
Hi.
Here's the artist, Davon Brantley. Cheers.
Cheers.
And since we're going to be spending just a little bit of time together and you guys don't want to hear our muffled voices, we're going to demask and socially distance. Stick mine in my bowling pocket here. And we'll take a look at your show.
Yes.
All right. Welcome everybody to Living Figuratively. This is the show that asks the question, why not fill your home with the fascinating faces and figures of people that you don't even know? Why not fill your home with figurative art? Right now, as we count down to the holidays, I'm doing a little bit of shopping the shows, shopping the art shows in Cleveland, because right now, you know, COVID is, well, I guess we've accepted it, so we are having a lot of art shows, but there's no opening receptions. And all the art shows, one of the good things about it is that you can call and make an appointment. In fact, you're supposed to. That's kind of the only way to see a show. Like if you wanted to see this show, which is only going to be here for another 3 days,
Yep.
you would send an email to Davon, and his email is on my website. You can find it. Schedule a time, come and get a personal tour with the actual artist. Which, in normal times, you know, if you go to a private opening, you might not get a chance to talk to the artist, or if you just show up at the gallery, you're just walking through without any guidance or anything like that. So. What is the name of the show?
So the show is titled All Is Fine.
Okay. Which is a terrific name, and one of the things I've been doing just a little bit of research on this show, and we talked a little bit about it before, when we had some great conversations before, which I kind of wish we'd gotten on tape. But there's a progression with this show. Yes. Right here. And I'm going to take a wild guess that this one sort of is the first one. Yes. Of the in the progression of the show. Do you want to tell me a little bit about this one?
Yes. So with this piece, it starts off the story. A lot of my artwork is very personal and it follows a personal narrative. Talking about childhood trauma and how it develops you as a person, or it could, kind of fault you as a person as well too. So this is the beginning here where there's a baby picture of me, and it just shows that innocence of what it's like to be a child, being untouched by the horrors of the world, having room for growth and development. And so there's like a little twig as a blooming, like a little flower or tree. Here for that figure, and so it just shows that untouched essence of what it's like to be brought into the world.
And then there's a development. That comes around here, which you say that you have the one element in the show is the 3 states of Davon.
Yes.
Which, can you explain just a little bit about that? Maybe, I don't know if this painting is the one you want.
I just started off with this one, and so with what I went through with my many traumas or childhood trauma first starting off is that I separated myself into 3 mental identities, and so that can be called dissociative identity disorder, where there's 3 figures that are reoccurring throughout my artwork. One is named Davon, which takes care of my sad, lonely aspects of my personality and how I can be very depressed depending on what I'm triggered by. And then there's Davon, which he's manic, happy, anything can happen to him, and he's just super excited. He's like, I stubbed my toe, I'm excited, I'm gonna ignore it. A piano fell on me, broke my leg, I'm gonna ignore it.
Yeah.
And then there's Donovan, and I also call him Davon, because a lot of these are mispronunciations of my name.
Right, which I mispronounced your name when I first met you because I only read it on Facebook. But,
and so like I play fun with that as well. And he is kind of like a middle ground, hopeless romantic type of person, and so you see him depicted in a lot of my relationship imagery. And so with this piece here, you see there is 3 different figures, and what happens in my artwork is that I play all of the characters within my narrative, and so you don't really see a lot of different figures, and this one specifically talks about the trauma that I went through when I was around the age of 5 or 6, and how that felt being in that situation and everything.
right, yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. There's definitely a Caravaggio feel to it, you know, with the Christ entombment or the taking him down from the cross one. So how does referencing, you know, religion and mythology play into your art?
Yeah, it plays into my art a lot, and it comes to play because this is a lot of the things that I learned about growing up in school and college as well. I saw a lot of things about Greek mythology and Roman mythology, and within those pieces, when you go into like the art museum and see them, or online, you don't see a lot of, you know, minorities in them. And so I was really bugged out about that. It was like, well, why can I see my face represented within these pieces? Why is it when I'm depicted in the museum, it's kind of like I'm in a degrading position? And why can I not relate to this at all? Even though I have the same emotions that are depicted in these scenes and stuff, and I probably went through a lot of the situations they talk about, I don't necessarily see my face in them. And so that's what drew me into, you know, Caravaggio and the Renaissance and the Baroque eras of art, and kind of like those Christian saints that they would depict in there. Which, speaking of, go over here, and it kind of leads into that conversation, because with this piece, it kind of talks about the same pain inflicted onto Saint Sebastian, but a more human approach to it. And so we do have a Cupid represented in this piece, which when we think about Cupids, they're little trickster gods of love and stuff, and like they talk about like how you get shot with an arrow and you just fall in love with a person.
Valentine's Day cards.
Valentine's Day cards promote them, and it's all great, and it's like, yeah, if you get shot by Cupid, it's supposed to be a good thing. But what happens when, you know, you fall in love with the wrong person? You end up in a toxic relationship, it batters you up, you can see,
or you become a stalker.
Or you become a stalker.
Or you have a stalker.
Or you have one, you know. A lot of bad things come out of that, but we don't necessarily see those depicted when we see Cupids in art. And you can see that there's an arrow shot through the heart, paying homage to the shot through the heart, and all that. And you'll just see like a lot of pain inflicted into this figure. And so, and speaking of Saint Sebastian, he was actually a martyr for his religion, and he got tied to a tree, and several arrows were shot into him.
That's right. Yeah, he's always paying tied to the tree. The saints, there's a lot of material because they all had these gruesome deaths.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, I don't know if you've got other saints that you're, you know, like if you're continuing this body of work, where you've got other ones that are, you know, on deck circle.
I got some list of peeps. Like, it's going to be a very interesting year for me, because I'm developing a lot of different iconographies for myself.
Do you not like to talk about work that you're going to make, or do you you avoid that, or do you want to talk about work that you're going to make?
I like talking about it, but I still keep it on like I'm not gonna give you all the information, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of something so that you can like at least know the direction I'm gonna go.
Right. Yeah, because there is a lot of information, a lot of just symbols. I mean, the symbols. In fact, these paintings, the one right here also, is this one a mythological reference or a Christian reference or?
So that actually talks about a woman named Judy, who actually had a tyrant come into their village home and stuff, and he was like raping the women, eating up all the food, drinking up all of their beverages and all of that stuff. And he tried to get this woman into his tent, and she agreed. But he didn't know that he was going to get beheaded within his tent, and she would bring it out like a platter and all that stuff, which that has been painted by Caravaggio and other artists.
Artemisia Gentileschi has, I think, one of the best ones, where she's actually sawing it off. It's not, because, I don't think a head comes off too easily.
It does not.
But a lot of the Renaissance paintings, they're kind of like, oh, I got it now,
But that one is like very emotive, and it actually shows the gruesomeness of it, which I reference both of those for this piece. And you can see like my head is like here, she's holding it. And instead of it being like a super gruesome story as that one is, I wanted it to be the aftermath of this piece over here. So after this situation, I implode on myself just from the severity of the situation. And she actually finds my head just lying on the ground, and she's going to grow it into a sunflower field, where I'm able to grow as an individual by myself, uninhibited. So,
and who is the model for this?
So the model is my fiance. Shout out to you, Lauren. And she actually didn't even really know that I was doing it this large at all until she saw it in like my apartment.
And so what's the difference between, so is this a portrait of her or not?
No, so it's not a portrait of her at all. It is just me having her as a reference for the story I want to tell in this piece. So it's not a portrait.
Now, but are there, because as a painter of people, there's this human connection with the person that's posing for you. Even if you tell them, you're Holofernes, this is who you are, not whoever you actually really are. There's always this little human connection. Do you ever find pieces of that person's life and soul coming into your, informing your work?
I would say yes, mainly because it's kind of hard to disconnect from that a little bit. Like with Lauren, to me, she's like a very strong woman, and she has a grace to her. And as far as our personal relationship as well, she kind of has saved me from a toxic relationship as well too. So that kind of bleeds into that narrative. And it's not like super intentional, but it's still like something that appears within the art just because of who she is and how she stands and who she is as a person.
And she's contemporary.
Yeah.
She's dressed for today as opposed to, dressed Renaissance.
Yeah.
And everything. And so there is this progression going on. What are they doing out there? I guess you never know what they're doing. So we're going with the progression into the other room, right here. And so going in this room, one of the 3 states of Davon that you had talked about was the one who uses whatever laughter, manic laughter as a in fact this is one of the a painting that you have on that theme.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it's beautifully done. I mean, it's very like you've managed the colors, which are not a strong value pattern, but you've made a strong value pattern using colors that are they're not like dark, where you'd expect that this would be darker to sort of create the form, but you got the bright neon. And you say this glows in the dark too?
Yes, it glows in the dark. It's actually created with Dayglow paints for their Dayglow show that always happens in Waterloo every year.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought that was the perfect opportunity to
Mhm.
bring this character into fruition.
Okay, okay.
And to show off what he is and how he operates in his environment with these fluorescent colors. So this
Right.
does glow in the dark. You'll like have like a nice little black light over it, and it'll just make everything pop and glow. And you can also wear 3D glasses for it to kind of pop off on the pages.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, do you have other ones like this?
So the ones that I'm doing that are like this, they're not showing anywhere at all yet. But I do plan on putting them in an exhibition as soon as I get, to that point of writing up a nice proposal for it and everything.
Right. Would they be their own, or would you incorporate them with other, like are there going to be enough of them where you can have a whole?
So I don't. Yeah.
I'm not sure which is the pronunciation.
Davon.
Okay, that's the Davon pronunciation.
So right now it's kind of up in the air. I don't think right now there's enough for me to have like a whole entire exhibition for Davon. I think I would incorporate him, with my other personas that I have, just so that people can get an introduction to all of them and not just one at a time. But yeah.
And with the drawing versus the painting, because in this room you've got some paintings, and why don't we let's go this one above the fireplace, which fits so perfectly. This is really an amazing space. In fact, I forgot to do my intro about what an amazing space this is. This space actually is called, Museum of Creative Human Art, MOCHA. It was conceived by Antwoine Washington, who wanted to do it as part of saving Mahall's, because I guess there was it was in jeopardy because this is sort of an iconic bowling alley restaurant bar in Birdtown, Lakewood, and I don't know why it's called Birdtown, but maybe you know.
I do not.
I did see a street sign called Quail, so maybe there's other streets that are called Bird. But anyway, Antwoine Washington put together this space, and it's a gallery space designed to give a voice to Black artists. And it's a beautifully lit space. It's a great, it's very cozy and intimate. And so I want to, definitely give a shout out to this space. And when things clear up and things are just plain old open again, you can go bowling downstairs, grab dinner, come upstairs, see the art, and it'll be really, really good. So hopefully it'll still keep on going. But so you've got this beautiful gallery space, beautiful over the fireplace spot, with this very dramatic, powerful, compositional painting. I mean, can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so with this painting.
What is it called?
This one is called Isolation. And isolation is basically talking about when we get into these depressive moments, with feeling like we're alone and just feeling like no one is there besides yourself. This is what it looks like to me, and this is the personification of that depressive dude named Davon, who represents like all of the depressed, pensive sadness that I'll deal with when something triggers me in a way to where I would have to go into the state. And so I depicted him, just reflected by himself, mainly to talk about the fact that when you are, in this depressive state, you feel more alone. Even if you're in a crowded room, you just feel like you have yourself. And even with yourself, you don't want to confront yourself at all, because that just leads to more problems and you having to try to tackle the issue. And so you can see he has a strain, hunched over, the weight of the world is on his shoulder and everything as well too. And yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed just as a renderer of people is you've got a different light source for it's not like the light's coming from this direction and the shadow side is on the right side of both of them. It's almost like the light source is a dark source between them.
Yes.
I don't know if that's intentional or if it's very cool.
Yes.
And that's very cool. And with a little red, just a little bit of red to, I don't know, to just add a little oomph to the faces. So you're a drawer
Yes, I am
And
a
you
drawer.
are also, do you consider yourself a painter?
I do not consider myself a painter,
Okay.
more so a drawer, and that's only because I use a lot of the technical aspects of drawing within my paintings.
Okay.
And I also am very experimental with my process as well too, to where you'll see a lot of different textures come into play within my paintings and my drawings, and you'll just see me kind of finding out how to make the best of this material.
Okay.
Out of it, and so I consider that, you know, a huge part of my drawing process, which is why I consider myself more so a drawer and not a painter.
Do you see yourself becoming more of a painter at some point, like where you're painting more, where you're using the paint less as drawing, but you know, putting colors together specifically? I mean, I relate to exactly to what you're saying, because I'm not a drawer anymore, but I pretty much do that with paint now, I think, you know. But I also like the way the different colors and the cools and the darks, and you know, and like sort of building with color instead of just with value.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, value means light and dark pattern, and color means the warm and cool and the different hues that you might see in a painting. So like, you know, this painting is, it's not monochromatic, but it's like maybe duochromatic. That's, you know, that's even a word. But the forms are modeled really, really nicely. And, you know, you know how to do it. I can see the Renaissance classical tradition and all that. And, which is interesting, because this painting is beautiful, and I'm just going to call it a painting because it's made of paint.
Yeah.
This painting is also beautiful in a completely different way. And do you want to talk about the inspiration for this painting? Because this one it's very different from all the other ones in the show.
And so the inspiration for this painting deals a lot with memory, and it actually is where my childhood trauma started. And so with my childhood trauma, I actually was molested before my birthday, and I actually repressed that as a memory until years later, where I was like going through a lot of things. I was like, why am I like this as a person? And then I found the photograph of that actual birthday. And while I was in school, so the Cupid Supervisor is where I graduated from, I was doing my BFA, and a lot of my work was heavily influenced by, you know, my childhood trauma and many other traumas that appeared later. And I really wanted to touch on how to push the paint, how to push color, how to talk about memory and the effects of trying to remember something and losing information through that process as well too. And so I wanted to have key points for the viewer to come into, and so a lot of the key points you see is the pink in all of the clothing. And for me, when I try to remember this memory or this photograph, I only knew that my cousin wore pink. And she had a pink sweater, and it was very vibrant, very fuzzy and all that. And so I associated everybody with pink sweaters. And you'll see right in this area, there's these flowers that are very textured and everything as well too. I didn't remember what the flowers were. I just remembered that they were red, they had a lot of textures in it, the green was popping up to me as well too. And so I made that a key point as well. And as you look at these different key points, you'll see that a lot of the people in here are kind of fading out. Their features are becoming lost. They're unidentifiable. But when you get closer to around this orb area, which is also a key point, the faces become a little bit more rendered, and you're able to see, you know, the features a little bit more. And then you have me as the side character over here, splitting into those different mental identities that I told you guys before, except it's just two of them shown in that image. So you have like David on the right side, Davon on the left, and
Symbolized by the yellow.
Symbolized by the yellow,
the bright yellow.
And I really took inspiration as well from the imagery of the Last Supper, because we are around a table.
Oh yeah,
and it's pointing, all of that, and so
oh wow.
Yeah, I really wanted to implement that because there is an act of betrayal that comes afterwards,
right.
Of the Last Supper. But for me, it happened before. We were seated at the table here,
and you were the only one that was aware.
And I'm the only one that's aware
of the bad thing. You know, whether it's the Last Supper or yeah. This is just a riveting piece. This is the first one of yours that I saw. It was at the Artist Archives at the Scene on Scene show.
Yep.
And yeah, when I saw this, I took a picture of it immediately, and I was like, "Who's this Who's this Davon Brantley?" In my head, that's what I was saying. But then I found out that it's Davon Brantley. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people saw this piece first within that Scene on Scene show, and this was kind of like people's introduction to me, and like what I did and the color schemes I had. And so I was very proud of this piece. I loved it because it just pushed boundaries for me.
Yeah, and it's very different.
Yeah.
From, I would say you have several different bodies of work in this show. This one actually we did not talk about before when we just kind of do a little, run through. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this one is about creation, and it's titled Creation. And I was just meditating on that idea of what creation is, and how do you create yourself as a person, and how do you create your style. And so with a lot of my art, though like different chapters of it is very different, and that's intentional because a certain chapter is going to be rendered way differently from the next chapter in my life.
Right.
And so this one shows that kind of balance and that duality of like what makes something complete and what makes something created. And there's a lot of experimental practices with copper reliefing. There's modeling paste in here as well too, which tackles a lot of the same textures that I was using within that last smile piece is what I'm going to call it. And you'll see that there's a lot of different textures going on, and then you have like the nice subtle realism going in the middle, but then like an empty hand figure there. And so like that back and forth of like, this is a complete and creative piece, but also there's a lot of unfinished areas in there that I wanted to leave alone. And it kind of talks about how humans are like that as well too. It's like, you can't have completeness without a little bit of incompleteness.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're always forming.
Yeah, we're always forming.
We're developing no matter what.
And I'll talk about this little area here. That green, bluish texture that you see in there actually happened because, like the Statue of Liberty was copper first, and throughout, being exposed to the weather and the damp conditions and turning that nice blue. Yeah, and green. That's the same thing that happened here as well too. And it was because it was in a damp basement, and I just left it alone, and I let all of that kind of like.
So now, how did it happen to just some of it, and then the other copper did not change?
So that happened because a lot of the green area that you see, I use a lot of water and mixed with the modeling paste in there. So since that was an extra mode of dampness and stuff like that, and it being in the basement as well too, it helped make that reaction. While this kind of sat on top of everything, and it was more dry, and it didn't have to worry about being, held into that dampness at all. But these other areas did.
And it goes completely with the concept. I mean, isn't that serendipitous? Like when something happens, it's like the happy accident. That's the cliche with the artist and everything like that. But there are many things that happen. I mean, many bad things that happen, and you screw something up, and then you can't use it anymore. But sometimes that just the whole concept of the growth, and sometimes you go this way and it's green, it's not what you planned, but it's good.
That's good.
And then sometimes you go the other way and it's not what you planned, but it's also good.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, we're almost on time, how they say in TV. Let's finish up with this this trio of portraits.
Yeah.
And these are real people.
Yes.
Right? They're real people, and they're true portraits, not real people posing as actors or characters.
So these are true portraits of these people. They're not any character in my life at all. But I count these also as self-portraits because these three people have impacted my life in a way that has helped me grow as a person. Whether it was telling a funny joke or just welcoming me into their life with open arms and everything as well too. And so I wanted to create these really nice true portraits of them so everyone else can see, you know, the personalities of these people and how they have different perceptions of the world as well too. And I integrated some nice sewing within the pieces as well too, just to talk about the personalities as well, so that it would be a little bit of color in the portraits. And so, yeah, it's like a bunch of found fabrics that I associated with the person so that they had like a calming mood to them. I got like a more solid green color if they had like a very goofy, bouncy, but also like very calming presence to them. I would use the nice pattern material as well too.
And that must have been very scary, sewing into your nice drawing.
Yes, it was terrifying, but it worked out. It was great.
It's machine or hand sewn?
Machine.
Machine.
So
Oh, that's
that
even
was
more terrifying.
even more terrifying.
Unlike me, I set my L on with just a couple pins. I wasn't gonna.
Yeah, it was terrifying, but I was like, I need to do this mainly because it's calling for me to do it, and I really want to integrate it with the pieces. So.
I love how you bring like a different thing into it. Like you just never would think of sticking a piece of sewing a piece of fabric onto your drawing. Yeah, I think that just it creates a beautiful effect, and it's a nice counterpoint to the very beautifully rendered faces. You know, and these are like real specific actual people. I love these. These are gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I think we have reached the ending here. This was awesome. We went through pretty much the whole show.
Yeah.
And there's only about 3 more days to see this show. It comes down on December 6th. But if you send Davon an email, he will meet you here and give you the personal tour, or sit back and let you just walk around.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that, I feel like people, when you make an appointment for a gallery, you get a little scared. I mean, it's like me. I would feel just a little pressured, like where, okay, they're going to follow me around, they're going to expect me to buy something, they're, you know, and so far, all the appointments that I've made for different galleries and stuff, you just go and you just look around, and it's just, you get the place to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really, really nice. And you can ask a question, but nobody follows you around. You know, you go about your business, you look at the art, and it makes a great thing to do with a friend because you get to go someplace and socially distant and have something interesting to talk about. So thank you so much for meeting us here. Thank you for having this. This is an awesome show. What shows are in your future now here?
So currently I'm in the About Body, About Face show that is at the Artist Archives. Check that out. It's great. It's
I haven't checked it out yet, but I will.
And I will also be in a solo show at Fairview as well for basically these portraits that you see behind me. There's going to be way more of those in there, and I'll give you guys more information on that. And I'll also be in a solo show for Bay Arts as well too. So keep track of that.
That's the summer. That's in August.
Yeah. It's going to be in August.
Hopefully things will be all non-COVID-y by then.
I'm hoping.
You know, it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome. Bay Arts is a wonderful place. The only bad thing is they have this one round wall.
Yeah.
There was some long skinny ones from the round wall. So that's wonderful. So you've got like these 3 things coming up just in the next year. So
yeah.
That's a lot of work.
It is. It's been very stressful, kind of. Oh, and I'm also curating a group show as well too for Waterloo. It's going to be in January, so keep track of that.
This January or
This coming January.
Like
So
2021, so like in a month.
Yep, and we're going to be doing the advertisements for that pretty soon, so keep track of your magazines and all of that.
And yeah, follow you on Instagram. What is your Instagram handle?
It is Davon, Davon Brantley, Brantley.
Okay,
Yes.
I think I follow you already, but I will look again.
Yes.
Sure that I do. So thank you for joining us, thank you for welcoming us to Mahall's MOCHA in Lakewood, in Birdtown, which we'll figure out why it's called Birdtown.
Yes.
And thank you, come back next week for Living Figuratively when we go to the Wasmer Gallery at the Ursuline College for the new Masters show. And you work there.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of you know, the Cleveland art community is very small and cozy. Yeah, so we're gonna go to the new Masters show, Ursuline College, same bat time, same bat channel, next week, Thursday night, December 10th, at 6 o'clock. Y'all come back when you're here.